The ship came down from the sky on a Tuesday morning. Dr. Park stood on the observation deck of the United Earth Council building in Seoul, watching the massive vessel descend through the clouds. It was beautiful in a strange way. The metal seemed to flow like water, and lights pulsed along its surface like a heartbeat. After all the years of searching, all the radio signals sent into the darkness, someone had finally answered. "They call themselves said Captain, standing beside her. He was a tall man with sharp eyes and a permanent frown. Part of something called the Elder Council. Apparently, they have been watching us for some time. Did not look away from the ship. Watching us for how long? They did not say, but they claim to be over 900,000 years old as a civilization. Let that number sink in. 900,000 years. Humanity had only been writing things down for about 5,000. They were children compared to these beings. Bobbies, really." The welcome ceremony took place in the Grand Hall. Ambassador led the Earth delegation. She was a calm woman with silver hair and a warm smile that never quite reached her eyes. Had worked with her before and knew that behind that smile was a mind like a steel trap. The delegation entered through the main doors, and the room fell silent. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They moved with a grace that made humans look clumsy. Their leader stepped forward and raised one long hand in greeting. "People of Earth," he said, his voice smooth and deep. "We come in peace and friendship. We are the members of the Elder Council, a coalition of the oldest civilizations in this galaxy. We have watched your species grow and struggle. We have seen you take your first steps into space, and now we have come to guide you." There was applause from the human side, but notice that did not clap. His eyes moved across the alien delegation, studying them the way a soldier studies a battlefield. The ambassador continued his speech. He talked about how they had helped many younger species find their place among the stars. He spoke of peace and cooperation and shared knowledge. He described humanity as a promising young civilization that had much to learn. "We will teach you," he said, spreading his arms wide. "As we have taught so many others, you are not alone anymore. You have finally joined the great family of the galaxy." After the ceremony, attended a private meeting with the ambassador. His name was, and up close, he seemed even more alien. His eyes had no whites, just pools of deep black that reflected the light in strange ways. "Dr. Park said, we understand you are a specialist in languages. We would like to share our historical records with your people, a gift to mark this new friendship." Bowed her head slightly. "We would be honored." Handed her a small device that looked like a crystal sphere. "This contains our complete history, along with the histories of the species we have guided. You will see that the pattern is always the same. Young species emerge, struggle, and then we help them find their way. It is a beautiful cycle." That night began studying the records. She worked in her small office, surrounded by screens and translation programs. The language was complex but not impossible. Within a few hours, she had made good progress. But something bothered her. The records dated humanity's emergence from the rise of written language. They had marked Earth as a young world, barely 5,000 years into its civilization. There was nothing about anything before that. Frowned and pulled up Earth's own historical database. She scrolled back through the timeline. Written language. Then before that, the agricultural revolution. Before that, the migration out of Africa. Before that, hundreds of thousands of years of human existence. Before that, millions of years of human ancestors walking upright, making tools, surviving ice ages and disasters. The thought humanity was 5,000 years old. They were wrong by a factor of almost 1,000. The next morning, found in the security office. He was watching recordings of the delegation, his eyes narrow. "You do not trust them," said. "I do not trust anyone who comes bearing gifts and speaking of guidance," replied. "What did you find?" Sat down across from him. They think we are children. They dated our civilization from when we started writing, but human history goes back much, much further. Millions of years if you count our ancestors. They seem to have no idea. Leaned back in his chair. Interesting. Why would an ancient civilization with advanced technology make such a basic mistake? Maybe they did not make a mistake. Maybe they only see what they expect to see. That afternoon, they made a formal request. They wanted access to Earth's complete historical archives. They said it was to help them understand humanity better, to tailor their guidance to human needs. Ambassador agreed, but she called into her office first. Something is wrong, said, sitting behind her large desk. I can feel it. These are too smooth, too practiced. They speak to us like we are pets that have learned a clever trick. Nodded. I noticed the same thing, and there is something else. She explained what she had found in the records. They had no knowledge of human prehistory. They thought Earth was a young world with a young species. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, show them the archives, all of them. Let us see how they react when they learn that we are older than they think. Smiled. It was not a warm smile, much older. 3 days later, the delegation arrived at the Global Archives Vault in Antarctica. The massive underground facility held the complete record of human existence, from the first cave paintings to the latest scientific discoveries. As the tour began, watched them carefully. At first they seemed bored, nodding politely at displays of ancient pottery and bronze tools. But as they went deeper into the vault, moving backward through time, their expressions began to change. When they reached the section on prehistoric humans, stopped walking, his dark eyes fixed on a fossil display showing human ancestors from 2 million years ago. This cannot be correct, he said softly. Stepped up beside him. It is correct. Humanity has been on Earth for a very long time, Ambassador, much longer than you seem to have believed. Turned to look at her, and for the first time she saw something in those alien eyes that looked almost like fear. How long, he asked. Met his gaze without flinching. Long enough. The tour of the global archives continued, but the mood had changed completely. The delegation moved through the underground halls like people walking through a graveyard. Their smooth confidence was gone. In its place was something that looked like confusion mixed with worry. Ambassador kept stopping to stare at displays, his dark eyes unreadable. Doctor led the group deeper into the vault. He was an older man with gray hair and gentle hands, a scientist who had spent his entire life studying the ancient past. He spoke with the quiet pride of someone showing off his life's work. This section covers the last ice age, explained, gesturing to a wall of artifacts. Roughly 12,000 years ago, but human civilization did not begin there. We have found evidence of organized communities going back at least 40,000 years. Some sites suggest even older activity. Translator made a strange clicking sound. 40,000 years, that is impossible, our records show. Your records are incomplete, said Dr. Park, cutting him off. She had been waiting for this moment. Human prehistory is vast. We have been here for a very long time. Led them to a special chamber at the heart of the archives. The room was cold and filled with preservation equipment. On display were objects that did not match any known human technology from their supposed time periods. These are the anomalies, said quietly. Metal fragments found in coal deposits millions of years old. Carved stones from before humans were supposed to exist. Structures on the ocean floor older than any civilization we know. We have never been able to explain them. Stared at the displays without speaking. His aides whispered among themselves in their own language, too fast for the translators to catch. In another part of the facility, Ryu was preparing a different kind of presentation. She was the director of Earth's Deep Data Network, a system of artificial intelligence that could analyze and reconstruct information from any source. She was young for such a position, with short black hair and eyes that rarely blinked. "The AIs have been working on this for decades," told Captain as he entered her control room. "We fed them everything: genetic data, geological surveys, satellite imagery, archaeological records, and they found patterns." "What kind of patterns?" asked. "Pulled up a holographic timeline. It stretched back millions of years, marked with colored bands at irregular intervals." "Cycles," she said. "At least 6 of them. Periods where human activity increased dramatically, then collapsed. Each cycle shows signs of advanced development followed by sudden destruction. Ice ages, volcanic events, impacts, wars. Something always ends it." "Study the timeline. You are saying that human civilization has risen and fallen multiple times before recorded history." "That is exactly what I am saying. We do not remember because each fall was complete. The survivors had to start over from nothing. But the evidence is there, buried in the ground and encoded in our genes." Meanwhile, in the main archive hall had pulled Ambassador aside. His calm mask had cracked, showing something raw underneath. "This information cannot be correct," he insisted. "We have surveyed this galaxy for hundreds of thousands of years. We have records of when each species emerged. Earth was cataloged as a young world, barely developed." Looked at him with a steady gaze. "Perhaps you only saw what you expected to see, or perhaps you only looked at the surface." His jaw tightened. "You do not understand. If what you are showing us is true, then everything we know about the galaxy's history is wrong. Every assumption, every classification." "That sounds like your problem to solve," said calmly. "We are simply showing you the truth." That evening abruptly ended the tour. He claimed that their translation systems were experiencing problems and that they needed to return to their ship to recalibrate. No one believed him. Watched the shuttle lift off from the archive's landing pad. The cold Antarctic wind bit at her face, but she did not mind. Something important had happened today. She had seen fear in the eyes of beings who claimed to be nearly 1 million years old. "They know something is wrong," said, appearing beside her. "They are afraid," agreed. "The question is why. They came here expecting to find children. Instead, they found something else." That night worked late in her office. She had connected her translation programs to the archive's main computer, running deep analysis on the language. Something about it had been bothering her since the first day. A familiar rhythm, patterns that tickled the edge of her memory. At 3 in the morning, her computer flagged an anomaly. The language contained root structures that matched extinct human languages. Not borrowed words, not coincidences. Deep grammatical patterns that pointed to a common origin. Stared at the screen, her heart pounding. That was impossible. The claim to be hundreds of thousands of years older than human civilization. Their language should have nothing in common with Earth's. Unless... Her computer beeped again. An incoming transmission, heavily encrypted. Programs had intercepted it from the ship. She ran it through her translation software and waited. The message appeared on her screen. "The humans do not know what they are. Recommend immediate reclassification. This is not a younger species. Repeat, this is not a younger species." Read the words 3 times. Then she picked up her communicator and called. "I need you to come to my office," she said, "right now." When arrived, showed him the intercepted message. His expression did not change, but she could see his hands tighten into fists. "Reclassification," he said slowly. "What do you think that means?" "I do not know, but they are clearly worried. They came here thinking we were children who needed guidance. Now they are not sure what we are." Was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "If they are this concerned about a few archaeological discoveries, then there must be something bigger, something they are afraid we will find out." Nodded. "I have been thinking the same thing. The language patterns I found, the anomalies in the archives, the reaction. It all points to something that does not fit their story of being the galaxy's elder race. Then let us find out what that something is, said. If they are hiding the truth about our past, we have a right to know. Smiled grimly. I already have some ideas about where to look. There are rumors about a secret facility buried deep in the Siberian ice, a place where the government has been studying things that do not fit the official history, things that are very, very old. Raised an eyebrow. How do you know about this? I pay attention, and I ask questions that make people uncomfortable. Nodded slowly. Then I think it is time we ask some more uncomfortable questions. Let us find out what is really buried in the ice. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere up there, they were sending panicked messages back to there. They had come to Earth expecting to find a young species ready to be molded. Instead, they had found something that frightened them. Did not know yet what that something was, but she intended to find out. The helicopter flew low over the frozen Siberian landscape. Below, there was nothing but white, endless fields of ice and snow that stretched to every horizon. It was one of the most remote places on Earth, and that was exactly why they had built the facility here. Dr. Park sat in the back of the helicopter, watching the white world pass beneath them. Beside her, Captain checked his equipment for the third time. Ambassador had given them full authorization, along with a warning. What they were about to see was classified at the highest level. The helicopter descended toward a small cluster of buildings half buried in the snow. Armed guards met them on the landing pad, their faces hidden behind cold weather masks. They did not ask questions. They simply led the visitors inside. General Minyu Han was waiting for them in the main control room. He was a solid man with gray temples and eyes that had seen too much. He shook their hands firmly and got straight to the point. You are here because of he said. It was not a question. I have been expecting this visit for years. I always knew that one day someone would come asking the right questions. What is this place? Asked. Minyu gestured for them to follow him. We call it Site Omega 7. It was discovered in 2089 during a routine geological survey. The drilling team found something that should not exist, something buried under 4 kilometers of ancient ice. They walked through a series of heavy doors, each one requiring different security codes. The air grew colder as they descended deeper into the facility. Finally, they reached a massive underground chamber carved from the ice itself. In the center of the chamber stood a vault. It was clearly artificial, made of a dark metal that seemed to absorb the light. The design was angular and strange, but there was something familiar about it, something that made its heart beat faster. Carbon dating places this vault at over 2.3 million years old, Minyu said quietly. The technology inside is unmistakably human. Frowned. That is impossible. Humans did not exist 2.3 million years ago. Humans as we know them did not exist, Minyu corrected. But someone was here, someone who built this, someone who looked enough like us that we cannot tell the difference. He led them inside the vault. The interior was surprisingly well preserved. Screens lined the walls, dark and silent. In the center of the room stood a single device that pulsed with a faint blue light. We spent 30 years trying to activate it, Minyu said. We finally succeeded in 2119. It was a message beacon, waiting for someone with sufficient technology to turn it on. What did it say? Asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Minyu pressed a button on a nearby console. The screens on the walls flickered to life, and a voice began to speak. It was a human voice, speaking a language that's translator struggled to process. But slowly, the words became clear. You are the 7th rising. We who came before reached the stars and found them empty. We seeded them with the promise of life. We fell so that you might climb. Remember, you are not the children. You are the parents dreaming of your children. The message repeated, then fell silent. stood frozen, her mind struggling to process what she had just heard. The seventh rising. That meant there had been 6 previous human civilizations, each one rising to the stars and then falling, each one leaving behind fragments that the next would eventually find. "There is more," Minyu said. He called over a young woman with tired eyes and ink-stained fingers. "This is Dr. Song. She is our geneticist. She has discovered something that changes everything." Nodded nervously. "When we mapped the human genome, we found large sections that seemed to serve no purpose. Scientists called them junk DNA, but they are not junk. They are archives." She pulled up a holographic display showing strands of genetic code. "Encoded within our DNA are fragments of records, instructions, and warnings, left by previous versions of humanity. We carry our own history inside our cells, written in a language we are only now learning to read." "What do the records say?" asked. Took a deep breath. "They say that millions of years ago, the first humans reached the stars. They found a galaxy empty of intelligent life, so they created it. They sent out seed ships to thousands of worlds, carrying genetic material and terraforming equipment. They planted the seeds of life across the galaxy." Felt the room spin around her. The other species in the Elder Council, are you saying that we created them?" "Not we," said. "Our ancestors, previous risings of humanity. They seeded the galaxy with life, then fell before they could see the results. Over millions of years, those seeds grew into the civilizations we see today. The others, they are not our elders, they are our children, children who forgot where they came from." The silence in the vault was absolute, was the first to speak. "Why did they fall, each rising? What destroyed them?" Minyu's expression grew dark. "According to the genetic archives, it was always the same thing. We destroyed ourselves. Wars, conflicts, weapons that could shatter worlds. Each time humanity reached for the stars, we brought our worst nature with us, and each time we paid the price." Thought about the message beacon. "You are the seventh rising. If the pattern held, then humanity was destined to fall again, to destroy itself again, unless something changed." "We need to tell the world," she said, "and we need to tell they deserve to know the truth about where they came from." Minyu nodded slowly. "I agree. That is why I authorized this visit. The time for secrets is over. If we are truly the elders of this galaxy, then we have a responsibility to act like it." Was already moving toward the door. "I will arrange a transport back to Seoul. We need to speak with Ambassador immediately." As they left the vault, paused to look back at the ancient structure. Millions of years old, built by humans who had reached the stars and found them empty. Humans who had filled that emptiness with life, only to destroy themselves before they could see the results. She thought about thee and their smug confidence. They had come to Earth thinking they were the wise elders, here to guide a young species. They had no idea that they were the children, and that their forgotten parents had finally woken up. The truth was going to change everything. On the flight back to Seoul, sat in silence, watching the frozen landscape give way to forests and then to cities. Sat across from her, his face thoughtful. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "I am thinking about what we are going to say to them," he replied. The other species. How do you tell someone that everything they believe about themselves is a lie?" Considered the question. "You tell them the truth, and you give them time to accept it. And if they do not accept it, then we show them the evidence. We show them the vault, the genetic archives, the star maps. The truth does not need to be believed. It simply is." Nodded slowly. "You are braver than I am. I keep thinking about how I would feel if someone told me that my entire history was wrong, that my gods were just forgotten ancestors, that my great civilization was just a seed that someone else planted." Looked out the window at the clouds below. Maybe that is exactly what they need to hear. Maybe knowing where you really come from is the first step to knowing where you should go. The helicopter began its descent toward Seoul. In the distance, could see the ship still hovering above the city, its lights blinking against the gray sky. The children were about to learn the truth about their parents, and nothing would ever be the same again. The request was simple, but it carried the weight of history. Ambassador stood before the communication screen, her hands clasped behind her back. On the screen, the face of Ambassador flickered with barely hidden suspicion. "You are requesting a summit with the full Elder Council?" asked. "That is highly irregular. Such gatherings are only called for matters of galactic importance." Smiled. It was the kind of smile that made powerful people nervous. "This is a matter of galactic importance, Ambassador. We have discovered information about our shared heritage, information that affects every species in your coalition." There was a long pause. His dark eyes studied her face, searching for deception. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. The Council will convene aboard our flagship in 3 days. You may bring your delegation, but I warn you, Ambassador, if this is some kind of political trick, the consequences will be severe." "There will be no tricks," said, "only truth." The connection ended. Turned to face her team. Dr. Park sat at a nearby table, organizing the evidence they would present. Captain stood by the door, his expression unreadable. Doctor and Dr. Song were reviewing their data on portable screens. "Are we ready for this?" asked. Looked up from her work. "As ready as we can be. The question is whether they are ready to hear it." 3 days later, the human delegation boarded a shuttle and flew up to the flagship. The ship was enormous, a floating city in orbit around Earth. Its corridors were lined with artwork from dozens of alien species, all celebrating the wisdom and guidance of the Elder Council. Studied the artwork as they walked. Now that she knew the truth, she could see it differently. These were not the proud achievements of ancient civilizations. They were the unconscious echoes of something older, something that had been forgotten. The council chamber was a vast circular room at the heart of the ship. Representatives from 12 species sat in elevated seats arranged in a ring. They held the central position, their ambassador looking down at the human delegation with cold eyes. "You requested this summit," said. "Speak your piece." Stepped forward. "Honored members of the council, thank you for receiving us. We come to share a discovery that will change everything you know about the history of this galaxy." A murmur passed through the assembled delegates. Some looked curious, others looked annoyed. None of them expected what was about to happen. Activated her presentation device. Holographic images appeared in the center of the chamber, showing the vault beneath the Siberian ice. The council members leaned forward, studying the ancient structure. "This vault was discovered beneath the ice of our world," explained. "It is 2.3 million years old. The technology inside is human, not similar to human. Our ancestors built this before any of your civilizations existed." The murmuring grew louder, raised a hand for silence. "You are claiming that humans existed millions of years before our records indicate," he said. "That is a bold claim. What evidence do you offer?" Doctor stepped forward with his own display. Star maps recovered from the vault. They show ancient colony routes stretching across the galaxy. He highlighted certain points on the map. "These routes match the of the, and 8 other species represented in this council. Exactly." The chamber erupted in protests. Delegates shouted in their native languages, their translators struggling to keep up. Slammed his hand against his seat. "This is absurd. You are suggesting that humans colonized our worlds, that we are somehow descended from your species, that have records stretching back 900,000 years. Our history is complete and—" Dr. Song spoke next, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. "Your history begins 900,000 years ago, but it does not explain where you came from before that. Your earliest records speak of emergence, of awakening. You have no origin story because you forgot it." She displayed genetic analysis data. We have found traces of human genetic structure in the genome, deep markers that point to a common origin. You did not evolve naturally on your world, Ambassador. You were seated there." The chamber fell silent. The delegates stared at the data, their blue faces pale. Then delivered the final piece of evidence. "Ambassador, I have analyzed your language in great detail. The root structures of speech contain patterns that match extinct human languages from over 1 million years ago, languages that existed on Earth long before your civilization began. These patterns could not have evolved independently. They were carried to your world by the seed ships that created you." His mouth opened, but no words came out. His aides whispered frantically behind him. The other council members were equally stunned, looking at each other with expressions of shock and confusion. Ambassador stepped into the center of the chamber. Her voice was firm but not unkind. "We do not share this information to shame you or diminish your achievements. Every species in this galaxy has grown and developed in its own way. You have built beautiful civilizations, created art and science, explored the stars. Those accomplishments are yours and yours alone." She paused, looking at each delegate in turn. "But the truth is this: millions of years ago, humans reached the stars. We found a galaxy empty of intelligent life, so we filled it. We sent out ships carrying the seeds of life to thousands of worlds. Those seeds grew into you, all of you. You are not our elders, you are our children, and we are finally awake to meet you." The silence stretched for a long moment. Then the oldest member of the council, a being with silver-blue skin and ancient eyes, spoke. "If what you say is true, then we must ask the obvious question. Why? Why did your ancestors do this? And what happened to them?" Looked back at, who answered the question. "Our ancestors were alone. They searched the stars and found only silence. They could not bear that loneliness, so they decided to fill the galaxy with life. They hoped that one day their children would find each other and never be alone again." "And what happened to them?" the ancient pressed. Captain spoke for the first time. His voice was hard but honest. "They destroyed themselves. It is the pattern of our species. We rise, we reach for the stars, and then we fall. Wars, conflicts, weapons we should never have built. Each time we nearly wiped ourselves out. Each time we had to start again from nothing." The chamber was utterly still. The weight of history pressed down on everyone present. The ancient leaned forward. "You say you fall because of your own nature, your own conflicts. Then why should we believe that this time will be any different? Why should we trust that you will not destroy yourselves again and take the galaxy with you?" It was who answered. "Because this time we are not alone. For the first time in millions of years, humanity has woken up to find that our children have grown. You are here, all of you, and perhaps together we can be better than we were alone." The broadcast had gone out to every world in the coalition. Billions of beings were watching. The greatest revelation in galactic history was unfolding in real time. Captain stepped closer to and muttered quietly, 900,000 years, and they never once came back to check on Earth. Some children did not respond, but saw the corner of her mouth twitch in what might have been a smile. The ancient finally nodded. "We will need time to verify this information, to examine your evidence, to come to terms with what it means." "Take all the time you need," said. "We have waited millions of years. A few more will not matter." As the human delegation left the chamber, looked back, the council members sat in stunned silence, their ancient certainties shattered. For 900,000 years, they had believed themselves to be the wise elders of the galaxy. Now they knew the truth. They were the children, and their parents had finally come home. 1 year had passed since the revelation. Earth had changed. The planet that once looked up at the stars with wonder now looked up with something else. Pride, perhaps, or maybe just the quiet knowledge that those distant lights were not strangers. They were family. Ships arrived daily from across the galaxy. Not warships or diplomatic vessels, but pilgrimage craft. Beings from 100 different worlds came to walk on the soil of their ancestors, to see the place where all life in the galaxy had begun. They came with questions, with tears, and with a hunger to understand. Dr. Park stood on the observation deck of the new Institute of Galactic Ancestry, watching a family walk through the gardens below. The parents moved slowly, pointing at flowers and trees with expressions of wonder. Their child ran ahead, laughing at birds that scattered at her approach. "Strange, is it not?" said Captain, joining her at the window. He wore a new uniform now, the insignia of Earth's first interstellar fleet on his shoulder. "A year ago, they looked at us like we were primitive creatures. Now they come here like pilgrims visiting a holy site." Nodded. "They are trying to find themselves. For 900,000 years, they built their identity on being the eldest. Now they have to figure out who they are without that. And us, who are we without being the youngest?" Smiled. "We are what we always were, survivors, dreamers, the ones who keep getting up after we fall." The Institute had become the center of humanity's effort to understand its own past. Teams worked around the clock to decode the genetic archives and explore the vaults that had been discovered across Earth. 12 vaults in total, each one from a different rising, each one containing fragments of knowledge and warnings from previous versions of humanity. In her office, Dr. Song was making a breakthrough that would change everything again. "You need to see this," she said when arrived. Her face was pale, her eyes tired but excited. "I finally decoded the deep archives, the oldest sections of the genetic record." She pulled up a holographic display. Complex patterns of genetic code swirled in the air, with certain sections highlighted in red. "The archives contain a warning about the 8th rising," explained. "Each previous cycle ended because of humanity's internal conflicts, wars, ideological struggles, weapons that grew more powerful than our wisdom. The pattern is clear." "We already knew that," said. "But we did not know this." Zoomed in on the highlighted sections. Each fall reduced human genetic diversity. The survivors who rebuilt civilization each time were smaller and smaller groups. By the time our current civilization rose, we were working with a fraction of the original genetic potential. Felt a chill run down her spine. "What does that mean?" "It means that if humanity falls again, there may not be enough diversity left for a 9th rising. Our genetic foundation is too narrow. If we destroy ourselves this time, it will be permanent. There will be no one left to carry on." The words hung in the air. 7 times humanity had risen, 7 times it had fallen, and now, for the first time, there would be no second chance. Sat down heavily. "We need to tell people, everyone, the other species, all of Earth. They need to know what is at stake." "I agree," said, "but it cannot just be a warning. Warnings did not save the previous risings. We need to change something fundamental. We need to be better than we were." The Galactic Homecoming Summit was held on Earth 6 months later. Representatives from every species in the former Elder Council attended, along with delegates from dozens of other worlds that had recently discovered their own human-seeded origins. Ambassador stood before the assembled beings. She was older now, her silver hair, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. Behind her, a massive screen displayed images of Earth from space, blue and green and perfect. "Friends," she began, "children, family, we gather here not to celebrate the past but to build the future. For millions of years, humanity has risen and fallen. Each time, we destroyed ourselves before we could learn to live with each other. Each time, we left behind only fragments and seeds, hoping that the next generation would do better." She paused, looking out at the sea of alien faces. "You are the result of that hope. Every species in this room traces its origin back to Earth, to humans who looked up at empty stars and could not bear the loneliness. They created you because they wanted the galaxy to be full of life. They wanted there to be someone else out there, even if they would never live to see it." The chamber was silent. Thousands of beings listened, their translators turning words into 100 different languages. But now we face a truth that cannot be ignored. Our genetic archives tell us that if humanity falls again, there will be no eighth rising. This is our last chance, not just for humans, but for all of you. Because if Earth falls, you will lose your connection to your origins forever. The parent that dreamed you into being will be gone. She stepped forward, her voice rising. So I ask you, all of you, help us break the cycle, not because we are your elders, but because we are family. Let us learn from each other. Let us grow together. Let us make sure that the next 1,000,000 years are filled not with war and destruction, but with life and hope and connection. The applause started slowly, then grew until it filled the chamber. Beings who had once looked down on humanity now stood and cheered. The ancient elder who had questioned aboard the flagship a year ago was the first to step forward and clasp her hands in the traditional gesture of alliance. "We will help," he said, his ancient voice strong. "Not because you are the elders, but because you are right. The cycle must be broken, and it will take all of us to break it." Later that evening, walked alone through the gardens of the Institute. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. In the distance, she could see the lights of alien ships coming and going, a constant stream of traffic between Earth and the stars. Found her sitting on a bench, watching the sunset. "You should be at the celebration," he said, sitting down beside her. "I will be, I just needed a moment." She looked up at the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. "Do you think we can do it? Break the cycle?" Was quiet for a long moment. "I do not know, but I think we have a better chance now than we ever did before, because for the first time we are not alone." Nodded. 7 times we rose and fell. 7 times we filled the galaxy with life and then destroyed ourselves. But maybe the 8th time is different. Maybe this time we have something we never had before. What is that? Family, real family. Not just the seeds we planted, but children who grew up and came back to find us. Children who want to help us survive. On a distant world, far from Earth, a young alien girl sat with her parents watching the broadcast of Ambassador's speech. She was small, with bright, curious eyes and skin the color of fresh leaves. Her world had only recently learned of its connection to humanity, and everything was new and confusing. "Mommy," she said, tugging at her mother's arm, "are the humans really that old?" Her mother looked down at her with a gentle smile. "Older than old, little one. They are the ones who dreamed us into being, and now they have finally woken up. Will they teach us things? I think they want to learn with us, not just teach. That is the difference between the old way and the new way. Before, everyone thought learning only went one direction, from old to young, but the humans say we can all learn from each other." The girl thought about this. That sounds nice, like a really big family where everyone helps everyone. "Yes," her mother said, looking up at the stars. "Exactly like that." On Earth, the celebrations continued late into the night. For the first time in millions of years, humanity was not alone. The children had come home, and together they would face whatever the future brought. Not as elders and younglings, not as teachers and students, but as family. And this time, when humanity reached for the stars, it would have helped holding on.